안녕 친구들. I hope you've been well. I know it has been a while. I think it's what, 2 weeks, right? Since I last posted a video recap of both Goo Family book as well as Master's Son. I finally did get around to filming a little bit. You'll notice in the background I am at my church. There are a bunch of events today, and so I had about 2 hours in between one event and then the next event. So anyway, I thought I'd come on here and give you a quick recap of episodes 23 and 24. They will be extremely brief. And then I'll wrap up with my overall impressions of the series. And I'm hoping to make it only about, 15 minutes long? We hope, right? We know how I tend to talk. So anyhow, episode 23 resumes with Kangchi pretty much telling Yeol that he can't really be with her. He's going to leave, especially when her life is on the line. And then Yeol is, of course, devastated. And during that time, Kangchi goes to see Lee Sun-shin, and as they talk, taking a midnight stroll, Lee Sun-shin, of course, wise man that he is, asks Kangchi, well, if what you are most afraid of is having her die because of you, then what do you think she's most afraid of? And Kangchi had never thought of that, and as he reflects back on what she might be afraid of, he realizes that in a previous conversation with him, she had said her greatest fear is him, that he'll leave her or that he will stop loving her and all of those things. And so at that point then, there is this kind of realization on Kangchi's part. He goes back, but what happens is during that time, yes, one of the bad military training guys, I forget his name, Pak maybe? Anyway, he is now in the back pocket of Chogonung, and he lures Yeol out, and then basically she gets kidnapped, and then she is held literally for ransom as a way of trying to get Lee Sun-shin executed by Kangchi. Because Chogonung basically says, if you want to see Yeol alive, bring me back Lee Sun-shin's head, right? So Kangchi, thinks we've got to do something. Tam Pyeongjun, who realizes his only child and daughter has been kidnapped after, a lot of chaotic, tumultuous, emotions that course through him, he decides that he's just going to let her die because he cannot, for the greater sake of his country and all of that, allow his personal feelings as a father to jeopardize the, protection and the safety of the country. And he believes that making sure Lee Sun-shin is alive and well protected is the best way to ensure that. So Kangchi then goes to see Lee Sun-shin, and he asks him, he says, how much do you trust me? And there's this incredibly great moment between Lee Sun-shin and Kangchi where, Kangchi's really asking him, as much as, you've taught me and things like that, how much will you trust me with what I'm hoping that we can do, right? And so, it's assumed that Lee Sun-shin is going to go along with whatever Kangchi has concocted, and then Kangchi, Kwon, and Taeseo, and Kangchi's little thuggish brother, his adopted brother, I guess, they go charging in to go save Yeol. And it's in one of the one of the storage areas of the 100 Years Inn. So they go in, and there's this really great scene because those of you who've seen Indiana Jones, I think it was Raiders of the Lost Ark, as well as Temple of Doom, where one of the natives in that country is wielding a sword like this. Do you remember? And in, I think it was Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indiana Jones pulls out his gun and shoots him, right? And then in, I think, Temple of Doom, the guy does it again, or a different, guy. And then Harrison Ford's character, Indiana Jones, reaches for the gun and can't get it, right? We see a very similar little sequence like that in Goo Family Book, episode 23, as one of the ninja minions are, flashing his little sword thing, and then Kangchi just kind of looks at him, and then he very quickly dispatches him. But anyway, Kangchi is, of course, able to rescue Yeol in time, just before the big huge metal ball that was hanging over her head falls on her. And during that time, Kang-chi also, saves his father and his servant friend. Well, Yo's reaction is a bit unexpected, but at the same time not unexpected, because as Kang-chi, releases her from her binds, she then looks at him and then she starts to hit him, right? And at that point, Kang-chi then, comforts her and things like that. And what I found very interesting with episode 23 especially is the fact that Yeol says she loves Kang-chi and Kang-chi says he likes her. And that you see that reversal happen in modern time, because Kang-chi then tells Yeol, I will be the first to love you. And there were just a lot of really great moments, dialogue, especially with 23 and 24. What I found particularly useful, noteworthy, was the fact that there were so many parallels between Yeol and Kang-chi, and her and his mother and father's love story. So anyway, episode 24 then, I think episode 23 ends with Lee Sun-shin coming into the 100 Years Inn and then challenging Cho Gun-woong, and Cho Gun-woong basically saying, attack and capture Lee Sun-shin. And then, Kang-chi and his crew come to help defend Lee Sun-shin. Well, 24 then, I believe, if memory serves correctly, Lee Sun-shin then, it's like a face-off, and that guy Saul, he's not dead yet, right? So he has in his possession one of the rifles that the Japanese merchants had given Cho Gun-woong in exchange for, his betrayal of his country and so on and so forth. And so Cho Gun-woong had told Saul, stand to the side, get your rifle ready, and then kill Lee Sun-shin with it. Well, what happens is that instead of killing Lee Sun-shin or Kang-chi, the bullet, whether it was by accident or the fact that he was aiming for Kang-chi and Yeol happened to see it and stepped in, the bullet ends up hitting Yeol, which basically, with the lead, and I was actually thinking about why that bullet wound would have hurt her. Part of it, I think, is just the fact that lead, the bullets that were used, there was no way that they could get it all out, and so it was just poisoning Yeol, and that's how she died. But anyway, so Kang-chi, of course, is, everything stops pretty much. He holds her to make sure she's all right, and then it looks like Yeol dies in his arms, and at that point he gets up, he flashes his Kumio eyes, and then he goes after Song, and he is like this close to killing that guy, even though Lee Sun-shin says, don't, remember your promise, don't kill out of revenge, don't put blood on your hands like that. Kang-chi doesn't care. He says, he's killed Yeol, and, he's determined to, squeeze the life out of him. And it's only when Yeol regains her consciousness that Kang-chi stops. And at that point then, as Kang-chi rushes to her and makes sure she's okay, or as okay as she can be given her wound, and fatal wound it is, Lee Sun-shin then says, because Cho Gun-woong has confessed to his betrayal and all of this during this time, Lee Sun-shin then calls the rest of his navy to come and arrest Cho Gun-woong and all of his men. And then Cho Gun-woong and his men kind of throw, I guess, diversionary gas bombs, I guess they're called, and then they run away. And so, part of episode 24 is really dealing with trying to catch Cho Gun-woong, which they eventually do, and Cho Gun-woong is then sent to prison. And what's really great, though, is that when Kang-chi meets up with him, he slashes Cho Gun-woong in the right arm or in the right hand, and so literally he just cuts it cleanly off. And I thought it was so symbolic, because in Korean culture, especially back then, everything was done with the right hand. If you tried, and I think this is the case with some other cultures as well, but if you do things with your left hand, it was considered ill-mannered or rude or very sinister. And I think definitely in the French too, the word sinister, or the left, can also be the word for sinister. I think it's like that with Latin too, in a little bit. But anyway, so Cho Gun-woong's hand, of course, right hand gets cut off, and then he's sent to jail. And what's really, I thought, very interesting is that we see Cheong-jo's personality totally, I mean, change. And even though there's a part of her that wants to kill him and part of her that doesn't want to kill him, of course. And she ends up having her face down with Boyson, and she pretty much puts that courtesan in her place. And then she bribes her way into the prison cell that is holding Chogonum, and then she pours him the poisoned drink. And of course, Chogonum knows, but Chungjo said, "I wanted to make sure that you died by my hands." She's like, "It's up to you whether you die this way or the other way." And so Chogonum decides that he's going to take the drink that she offers and then die by his own hands. And I think Chungjo at that point had asked him, why? And Chogonum said, and I thought it was so sad because he basically says, this has been a very boring life. And the things that I did for the sake of relieving that boredom. And you just wonder, because when he was having that face-off with Isenshin, right, and Isenshin had said, why do you do this? For whom do you do this? And Chogonum said, I do it for me, myself, and only myself. And just that type of unchecked narcissism that we see in Chogonum, it really is a terrifying, at least it was for me watching it. I just kept thinking, this is so sad that had his narcissism or his selfishness and his insistence on having his own way, had that been checked as a kid, you have to wonder how great Chogonum could have been. Very bright man for the most part, very passionate about certain things and such. And so that I thought was just sad. And the fact that Chungjo ended up killing him ultimately, I don't know, there's a part of me that still thinks I wish she hadn't done it, but at the same time justice was served. She is the only one in her family who's not part of the Four Masters, so that she could do it without any, qualms. And in some ways, because she represents also Soa in that similar situation, by killing Chogonum, she in essence was also, even though, the show didn't really talk about it, and she certainly probably didn't think about it. For me, by her killing Chogonum that way, it was in some sense giving Soa some part in that too, revenge. But anyway, so there was that, and then in terms of Yeol and Kangchi, they know that Yeol is going to end up dying. Kangchi knows. He's tried before when Yeol got hurt fatally, or what he thought was fatal, to heal her with his, bloodied hand, and Kwon had to literally stop him from killing, his, hand off. So Yeol is basically biding her time until, the wound eventually takes her life. And what I thought was incredibly poignant. And 24, I don't know. I mean, I know that when I heard from other people online, a lot of other Gu family book lovers did not really appreciate the way it ended. And for the most part, I didn't mind it. I especially appreciated the parallels that you see between between Kangchi and Yeol's love story, and the one between his father and his mother, Soa and Wolyong. And, just in the proposal scene alone, you see that where Kangchi says, will you marry me? And then Yeol says, she gives excuses like, I can't sew and I can't cook. And he says, will you marry me? And, that repetition, it was so beautiful to watch. Because as you watch their relationship draw to a close, it really evoked memories of his parents, really pure, innocent relationship back then as well. So, and what I also really was glad that the writer did was to make sure that Yeol knew that Kangchi remembered their childhood. And so when they're, because Yeol knows that she doesn't have very much time to live, so she asks Kangchi for 3 wishes. One of those wishes was that he would then allow her, or have dinner with everyone. So she spends her last dinner there, and there's this poignant moment where Han Pyeongjun pretty much gives his daughter over to the care of Kangchi, very symbolic of saying, I give my daughter to you. when throughout the series, Tan Pyeongjun had said nope, But one of her other wishes is to go on a walk with Kang-chi, and it's there by one of the little streams that Kang-chi tells her, do you remember in our childhood the promise that you made that you would marry me? And then, Yeol says, you remember? Since when? She's like, how come you didn't tell me? And Kang-chi said there was no need because you had started to have significance to me, that you already had meaning to me. And so then that whole marriage proposal happened, and very much, as I thought was appropriate in the quiet of the night, by the stream, Yoa breathes her last, and Kang-chi is left there, kind of cradling her dead body. Anyhow, and then we have this whole thing of, Yoa kissing him, and she dies, and I thought that's, I guess, the best way she could have died, right? Kissing Kang. I keep wanting to call him Kang. What on earth? But Yoa kissing Kang-chi goodbye, and Kang-chi at that point promising that the next time they meet, he'll be the first to recognize her. He'll be the first to love her, and all of those things. And what I thought was interesting was that flower that Kang-chi had given Yoa, and very symbolically it withers, and then very symbolically it blooms again. And just in terms of Kang-chi's story, just to take a quick break from the recap, Kang-chi really has two fathers in some respects. Merchant Park, of course, and Tan Pyeongjun, of course. But to me, his biological father, the first and last and only thing that Wolyung had told Kang-chi was to not be afraid, that when he gave in to fear, he would lose everything, right? And we see Lee Sun-shin saying the same thing. And I really love the fact that Kang-chi was able to grow on his own with that type of mentor, Lee Sun-shin, in the later part of his life, before the whole adventure. And Kang-chi pretty much says, I'm not going to be looking for the Gu family book. And there's this really poignant, significant line that he says. He's like, after she died, my time stopped. And his whole thing is that unless there's a Yeol, there's no point in him wanting to be a human being. And so he says to Lee Sun-shin, for the time being, I'm just going to live as a supernatural, or a half deity, if you will. And then he takes his leave of Tan Pyeongjun, the kitchen master, Song, and all of the other people, and Tesla too. And Kang-chi does promise to come back from time to time to visit. He says goodbye to his adoptive father and his servant friend. And then as he walks down the steps from the training academy, Kwon says, goodbye, Kang-chi, and then Kang-chi doesn't even look back. He kind of raises his hand, and in his hand is Yeol's sword that Tan Pyeongjun had given him, saying, this is yours now. And he tells him kind of jokingly, I hope you won't break this into the way you did mine. And so, Kang-chi leaves, and then we move literally 400 and 20, I think, 2 years into the future, something like that. And I did forget. You remember how I talked about parallels between Kang-chi's relationship and Wolyung's relationship? Ultimately, the two parallels even extend beyond that, in the sense that both women end up dying in order to protect their men. So they, Soa ends up killing herself so that Wolyung could live not as a curse. And then Yeol ends up, in some respects, stepping into the line of fire to protect Kang-chi from that bullet. So, I think that was what I think happened with the bullet hitting her. But in any way, 400, I think, 22 years later, or something like that. I loved the future episodes. I know that some people didn't, the little scenes in the future, but I just thought it was really funny how Kang-chi is seeing all these different people from his past life, reincarnated, if you will, into very different roles, and then how he's able to meet Yoru again, and that was, I thought, very cute. Um, I did like it. I know that some people were like, really, but I did like that. I thought it was a nice way to end the series. Certainly, if there is a call for season two, Gu Family Book season two, I guess could happen. This time, where Kangxi ends up pursuing Yoru, and then searching for that ever elusive, mythical, Gu Family Book. Um, I think though, in the scheme of the entire story, the future sequence I did not mind. The last, I would say 30 seconds, I did mind, because he then opens his hotel room door and Kwon is there with Lee Sun-shin, but they are in the role of Korea's national security. And I was thinking, really, do we have to go there? But for the most part, I did enjoy the entire series. I'm very thankful I got to see an entire series now. Those of you who are reading my blog, you know that for the past 2 years since I've been blogging, I really haven't had the opportunity to watch, I don't recall, an entire series, because I would get too bogged down with certain things and I would stop watching, because when I watch, I want to blog, or I feel like when I watch that I should blog, and it just gets crazy. But Gu Family Book is the very first in a 2-3 year span that actually it's been 3 years now, that I've been able to finally finish a series. So I'm excited about that. I did enjoy the Gu Family Book. The first two, and I guess these are my parting comments about the series itself. I don't think I've ever seen a series that really had the intensity and the, I guess, lure that episodes 1 and 2 did for me in the Gu Family Book. I think I mentioned when I was either video recapping or blogging that I could have totally been okay with just Wolyung and Seowa, and I didn't even need to have Kangchi or Yoru show up. It was just that compelling, and I think that really took me into then the second generation's story. In terms of Lee Seung-gi's acting, I will definitely say, because I saw him back when he was just starting out, at the age of how old was he? I want to say he may have been 16, 17, 18 maybe. But when he was in the sitcom Nonstop 5, very, very, he's come a long way in terms of acting, as is expected, with more and more roles and just experience and things like that. But I really did appreciate the depth that he brought to Kangchi's character, certainly, and the playfulness, and just all of that. And then in terms of other things that I really appreciate about Gu Family Book, I got to really appreciate Choi Jin-hyuk's acting. I had seen him briefly in I Need Romance, which was, I think, a TVN short miniseries, and I remember thinking, wow, he's really good. In addition to being, good looking, but I thought, oh wow, he's really pretty, solid actor. And so I really got to see him really embody Wolyung. I will say though, what was interesting, I don't know if you guys feel this way too, but I liked him better in the earlier episodes, and then when he came back as the 1,000-Year Curse, I felt that the acting, it felt kind of two-dimensional in some respects. I don't know if anyone else felt that, but I certainly felt that the acting was much stronger in the earlier episodes as Wolyung instead of as the cursed, Kumyo. And then just in terms of Lee Sun-shin, if nothing else, this series is responsible for giving me a profound appreciation for Lee Sun-shin. I really loved the intelligence of the man, the depth, the passion, the integrity. Just what can I say? I think, as great as the story was, to me, when Merchant Park disappeared and then Lee Sun-shin came, he really took Kangchi from where Merchant Park had brought him and took him that much farther. to the next level. And I think had Merchant Park still been alive, Kanchi would never have grown as much as he did under Izunshin's tutelage. So anyway, that is it. I hope this video recap made sense and that the recap was true to episodes 23 and 24. I think I tried to recap as best as I could. But anyway, for those of you who do take the time to watch this, thanks so much for going on this Goof Family book journey with me. We are officially done. Yay! So, thanks for watching, and I wish you a great adventure on your next Korean drama if you end up watching more. I will probably, right now, I think I'm gonna take a little quick break. So if you are subscribed and you see, a video in, I don't know, 1 or 2 months from now, then you'll know that I have officially restarted my video recaps. But until then, I wish you all goodbye. Bye!